He's the excellence of execution and the best there is, the best there was, and the best that there ever will be. He is your American Olympic gold medal hero. Both men are the pride of their nations in the ring and are proof that pure technicians do indeed have a place in the main event. However, time was not on their side for squaring off against each other, as we never got to find out who would get booked to come out on top. That is, until now. Welcome to Dave Knows Wrestling's Dream Match, where I will finally analyze these two combatants by examining their virtues, their weaknesses, and their prospects for victory. Everything that will help us to best appropriate, calculate, and approximate who would and should get booked to go over in a big dream match booking. And today's episode is Bret the Hitman Hart versus Kurt Angle. First, we need to pick a specific point in history for when this match would hypothetically take place. Then we'll be looking at a few highlight moments in each of their overall careers, and then finally, we'll be analyzing their win percentages to get a thorough evaluation of both men's probability to claim victory. So, let's begin by determining when exactly this hypothetical bout will be taking place. Now, out of all the time periods that this could possibly happen, it would be hard to imagine a more interesting storyline than that of America versus Canada. And with that being the case, then we would be looking at Bret's anti-America run in 1997. The same exact year that Bret Hart turned 40. However, at that time, Kurt Angle had yet to make his official in-ring debut as a professional wrestler. So, in order to make this as fair as possible, we'll be taking Kurt Angle from the year 2008, the same year that he turned 40, keeping both men on an even playing field. Kurt was beginning his run with the Main Event Mafia after recovering from a serious neck injury. Meanwhile, in 1997, Bret was leading the new Hart Foundation stable. But now, where and when exactly should this match be taking place? Well, if there was an apex of Bret's anti-American feud, it would have to be, of course, Survivor Series 1997, the night of the Montreal Screwjob. And in order to keep this match competitive, not only are the events of the Montreal Screwjob being retconned for this bout, but so will Bret's real-life contract status at this time. This dream match booking will be working around the idea that Bret was staying in the WWF and is simply facing Kurt Angle in Montreal for the WWF World Championship instead. And this is also working with the idea that 2008 Kurt Angle is actually in the WWF in 1997 and not in TNA, even though we will be using information from both men's careers throughout history. And with that being said, let's take a look at some highlights. Now, as far as championships go, Bret is one of the most decorated wrestlers there ever was. He has won the WWF Championship 5 times, defeating legends such as Ric Flair and The Undertaker in the process, not to mention also winning the WCW Championship twice. However, as decorated as Bret is, Kurt Angle has a distinct advantage over Bret in the gold department. Kurt has won the WWF Championship himself 4 times, beating the likes of The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Brock Lesnar. Not to mention that Angle is not only the first ever TNA World Champion, but he has also won the belt an additional 5 times, defeating the likes of Sting and Mick Foley, among others, to win TNA's top prize. And it should also be noted that Kurt has won 3 major titles that are met with some controversy, such as both of his runs with a big gold belt, once while it was known as the WCW Championship and the other while it was simply known as the World Heavyweight Championship. Although there are many who would not count these, since both runs happened with the big gold belt after the WWF had already purchased WCW. And also, another win that has some controversy behind it is his IWGP title reign. Now, this was not won in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but rather it was won for the Inoki Jino Federation and was merely a split off of the New Japan title of the same name. But even without counting these last 3 championships, Kurt has won 10 major titles in major promotions, 3 more than Bret's 7, although Bret has won more mid-card titles than Kurt, and that's without counting Bret's wins in Stampede Wrestling. Oh, and on an interesting side note, Kurt Angle was the second ever Triple Crown champion for TNA, and Bret was the second Triple Crown champion for the WWF. But moving on to other accolades, Kurt Angle has won both the King of the Mountain match in TNA and the King of the Ring in the WWF. However, Bret has also won the King of the Ring as well, but he didn't just win it once, he won it twice in 2 consecutive tournaments, as well as co-winning the Royal Rumble, something that Kurt Angle has never done. But outside of kayfabe victories, the two men have also earned a lot of praise from their critics as well. Kurt Angle himself has earned many titles with the Wrestling Observer, winning wrestling awards such as the Best Technical Wrestler and Most Outstanding Wrestler, two accolades that Bret has yet to receive. However, the Hitman has ranked number 1 on the PWI Top 500 Singles Wrestlers twice, where Kurt has only done so once. And so, with Kurt having the edge with the Wrestling Observer and main event titles, and Bret having the advantage with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, mid-card championships, and winning both the Royal Rumble and the King of the Ring one more time than Kurt, it would seem that both men are pretty close. But in order to get a better assessment of things for their respective years of 1997 and 2008, we need to take a look at the calculations. Dr. Dave here, and after examining the win-loss ratio of one Bret the Hitman Hart in 1997 and that of Kurt Angle in 2008, we can draw some very interesting conclusions. In straight-up one-on-one singles competition, both Bret and Kurt had 26 matches that ended with a decisive victor. Kurt had one additional match that ended with a no contest, and Bret had an additional 3. And I will not be counting the Montreal Screwjob into my calculations, since we already established that it didn't happen and it was originally booked to be a no contest anyway. Moving on, Bret has won 11 of these matches, but has lost a grand total of 15. Kurt, on the other hand, has won 13 matches and lost 13 matches, giving Kurt the advantage on paper. However, this all changes when you look at the nature of these wins. Not including countouts or disqualifications, Angle's record remains at 50-50 but drops to 12-12. But Bret's record, on the other hand, jumps significantly, going to 7 wins and 5 losses, gaining the lead with a win percentage of 58.33%. But even further still, things change even more when we remove matches that ended as a result of outside interference. Kurt's record gets a slight bump, going to 10 wins and only 9 losses, considering that 3 of his losses came due to the likes of Karen, Jeff Jarrett, and even Mick Foley, although 2 of his wins did come from the help of AJ Styles and Tomko. Overall, this results in Kurt Angle having a final win percentage of 52.63%. Now, how does Bret fare when we apply the very same rule? Well, while 1 win does get taken away, he gets 2 losses removed due to outside interference from The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin, resulting in the Hitman having a win-loss record of 6 wins and 3 losses, strengthening his lead to 66.7%. Alright, the combatants are set, and it's time to finally find out who would win this epic fantasy dream match booking. Will it be Bret the Hitman Hart or Kurt Angle? And your winner is Bret the Hitman Hart. Again, this was another really close call. Both men went back and forth, with Angle having the advantage for paper wins, but Bret taking the lead when you only count clean wins by pinfall or submission, which means that their records alone really aren't enough to go by. What this really came down to were 3 major factors. First, Angle suffering a neck injury in 2008 seems to have affected his booking, with more of his losses happening in the latter half of the year after his return. Not to mention that this match would be taking place in the WWF, where they tend to penalize wrestlers for getting injured, so it wouldn't be surprising to see this worsen even more so for Angle. Second, as already covered in one of the launch videos for this channel, if Bret had stayed in the WWF, all signs were pointing that Bret was going to hold onto the title going into Mania in order to pass the torch onto Austin. But most importantly, the biggest factor in deciding this outcome was their modus operandi for victory: submissions. While both Bret and Kurt have rare submission victories over Stone Cold Steve Austin, it isn't about their offense as much as their defense. Bret has never lost by submission in the WWF, although he did tap once to Ken Shamrock, but the referee didn't see it. And he did lose by submission once in WCW to Lex Luger. However, Kurt Angle has tapped out quite a bit throughout his career. Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Brock Lesnar, Samoa Joe, even The Rock and Chris Masters have all gone Angle to submit. Drew McIntyre has earned a submission victory over Kurt in both TNA and the WWE. Taz choked out the Olympic gold medalist, even though the choke was later ruled to be illegal, and most importantly, Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Kurt Angle by submission in 2008, the very year that we're sampling from. So in the end, when going hold to hold, the excellence of execution that is the sharpshooter is way more likely to get the job done than the ankle lock. Oh, it's true, it's true. Which is why Bret the Hitman Hart proves yet again that he's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.